my restaurant is back in Seoul. But yeah, I really enjoy cooking other types of food. Thank you. Even now in
History that books, I'm not really a historian, but I think being Carlos' specialty is understanding flavors and how it actually come about. So I think what me and Carlos is doing, it's very much a personal kind of approach on food. And as he said, Singapore has given us a lot of opportunity to be a little bit more creative and personal about our approach and pushing out food that reflects our history and our experiences in life. I'm very thankful and happy to be in this space. So today I'll show you a little bit of something that is close to my heart, part of my heritage, part of my upbringing, and it's a dish that is chicken. So to start with, Manila Value Trade, it's an exhibit that we are doing for about 4 months. And there's a video that's a little bit more intricate on the second floor. So if you have the time to go in there, we did a food fight, which is a communal dining experience where you have food on the table, and then it's kind of a fight, but it's actually a sharing time. So that was a very fun time for me and Carlos, and one Mexican guy called Luis. Mauricio. So yeah, so the influence of Manila Value Trade is very much deep. It includes the name of our country. It's Filipinas because of King Philip from Spain. So he gave us that name. But before that, we were very different people. We are very tribal. So as you can see, we got 7,100 islands. Depends high tide or low tide. So it really depicts a country that is divided and quite tribal by geography and dialects and language. So our food is very diverse, and it's hard to pinpoint what's the accurate of every single dish that's supposed to taste like. Not like they say in Spain, there's a certain demeanor that paella should be this because the ingredients are very simple. There's 3-4 ingredients that you can find all throughout Spain, and it's very, very much the same. But in the Philippines, we got so much islands, so much difference of language and dialect that how we treat and think and then approach things is very, very different. Next slide, please. So just a few lessons on the history of Philippines. For me, rediscovering my history is a crucial point of understanding how we actually come about with certain dishes and how it influenced us and how it went into our culture and how it became part of everyday bringing and then identity of Filipinos. So at a certain point on our Philippines history is that we are on the pre-16th century, it's, as I said, it's very tribal. And we're very much a small group of people, like the Sultanate, close relatives to the south of the Philippines. And then the northern part has a bit more influence with the local Taiwanese. So there's a very similar fabric of what the Taiwanese are using up in the mountains, and then in the Philippines, even in the southern part. So my strap in here is actually a Filipino fabric that's very much actually relatable to some weaving cultures in Southeast Asia as well. So that's how we are connected but separated in terms of Southeast Asia. So after the colonial period when the Spanish came, they came to the mid part of the Philippines, where you saw earlier the zone Visayas and Mindanao. Visayas were the first part where Magellan went, and then indoctrinated us with Christianity. Thus the presence of the Spanish and then Mexican culture, it's very much little bit more heavy in the mid part of the Philippines. Because the south is actually close to Sarawak, and it's mostly at a certain point, about 40, 50 years ago, it's still very much a Muslim country. But now that there's a little bit more of the government put us in one flag, then my heritage, which is from the mid part of the Philippines, went down to Mindanao, then that's where I grew up. And then on the top part, which is Luzon, that's where the Spanish went on to move and did a bigger and better colonial area. That's where Catholicism is actually indoctrinated and converted a lot of Sultanates and tribal people in the Philippines. Then we fortunately had the pleasure of learning how to cook properly with pork now. So before pork, it's usually wild boars. And then colonialism after the Spanish, we have a brief history with the Americans. So the Americans, what gave us is a little bit more of, because they're very much, they're quick on integrating things and having a bit more of a system. Thus, the Philippines had a bit more of growth in terms of agriculture. This is where rice came in our society. Because before that, Philippines is very much subject to sporadic farming. So rice is not commercial. So at a certain point of American coming in, is that they taught us how to propagate more of the rice and farm it to a bigger and better scale. Thus, our diet changed abruptly. And unfortunately, right now, it's one of the killers in the Philippine society is heart attack and diabetes. It's because of this rice boom that as human beings, what we used to eat before is mostly locavore, which is what we eat in terms of your core and your area, which is vegetables, fishes, and whatever meat that you can hunt down. So that is the diet of Filipinos before globalization and commercial boom had to endure every day, had the beauty of eating fresh, beautiful food. And then the Japanese occupation gave us a lot of, well, it's a family mentality because it's everything short-term. Then it becomes a little bit more of that, well, how can we preserve more food? So all the stuff that we have right now in the Philippines is mostly an oral tradition. So this is all just spoken, not written down. Because even my grandmother, which is 94 years old, she's illiterate, so she can't actually write down stuff. So all this we have is a written tradition. That's why oral tradition. That's why it's not really a distinct and mandated procedures in food. So post-World War, so that's all the boom came about, and the opportunity for us Filipino to be exposed to a different kind of cuisines and cultures. Because me and Carlos were just talking about earlier about storage. So mind you that I am in my mid-30s, but I can still remember the days that our household doesn't have any refrigeration. So that means that how we think and go about food before is that we cook it all the way. From we either eat it raw or all the way. That's why I asked Carlos about how should Spanish people accept raw tuna? Because definitely about 40, 50 years ago, there's no sense of refrigeration as well. In Spain, it's just a beautiful climate in there, but there's no storage. That's why how we eat before is either raw, eat it quickly with acid, or cook it all the way. That's why the Philippine food is mostly all the way cooked. Yeah.
In Spain, we used to, like back then, we used to slaughter with pork in winter because it was cold outside, so we could hang the meat outside and will not go off for like 3 or 4 months. And during these 3 or 4 months, also we do all the sausages,
And what we did for that is actually when we slaughter big animals, it's usually a festivities. So that's just the time that we actually, as a community, have people who come, help you guys out to break down the pork, cook it, and then consume it in a matter of a few days. But the beautiful thing about that is that it's even really nice and fresh. But it's the preserving method before the Philippines is not really strong, I guess, except for a couple of pickling, a couple of burro, which is lacto ferment, which they use a bit of salt. So the regional variations of Filipino food is very much diverse. I'm going to explain a little bit more of that later in our dish. And then common trends and innovation that we're facing right now, because in certain hindsight, that certain point of Filipino culture is that value trade is that part. So just looking back at the history, it's actually a very much big innovation for Filipinos to see different ingredients such as hikama, papaya, which we have here today. So a lot of ingredients that we don't really know, we try to acclimatize it and change to, or process it in a certain way that it actually marry and coincides on the flavors that we have. So the reason that I'm here, because I do have opportunity and luck to be cooking in a restaurant that is a wood fire. It's named Kubo, which is a thatch house. It's a kampung dwelling, which in the local language is. So we specialize on wood fire cooking, because I truly believe that it's going to be easier for me to make people understand what Filipino food is, because it's kind of actually taboo in mostly part of the world, because it's quite exotic to endure, I guess. So what we're doing here is maximizing the effort or the energy of fire. So at the heart and soul of the restaurant is this contraption that we have. It's called Kubo, which is fugon. It's a Latin word that depicts a wood oven, very similar to a pizza oven, that is a little bit long, and then on top it's cast iron. My grandmother, Josefa, which sparked the love for cooking, had a very similar setup when I was a kid. So we just stole her idea. So on top is usually you can take off the rings, it's like a French top that you can do the wok. And on the mouth of the oven it's quite warm, it's about 500 Celsius, so you can do a lot of roasting in it. But in Kubo, since we're sitting about 120 seating capacity, we are trying to maximize and give the respect of the fire, because we have one cavity. So on top it's cast iron, so we cook directly in it. We do a lot of steaming as well, so we redirect energy, because we're going through about a ton of wood in 2 weeks. So we need to make sure that we maximize and give respect to its energy. So we redirect its heat. So on top, steaming, we do a lot of cooking in there, and then once there's wood coals, fresh coals, no charcoal, no gas, we scoop them out, and then on this left side, it's actually a rotisserie or a hearth. So we can do a whole hog, whole lamb, and then we can change setting. So most of the time we have a wok section. So that's where the influence of the Chinese and do the wok on our dish. And then on this actually elevation grill, which is the Basque country in the northern part of Spain is actually a big proponent of the galleon trade that help us to, well, first person who, in written history, is the first person to circumnavigate the world with Magellan is actually a Basque. So his name is Juan Manuel Elcano. So there's a place in the Basque country that actually is named after him in order to for him to circumnavigate the world. His background is not really that sweet because he was a fugitive in a certain part of his life. But he's good enough as a sailor to actually go back to Spain from the Philippines, even though he didn't have the opportunity to circumnavigate before. So part of my heritage as a cook and as a chef, it really coincides me to have this setup elevation here. Because if not for one Elcano, is that my heritage as a Filipino is going to be different because of the Spanish influence, the Basque influence that he brought over to the Philippines. And then there's a special part of that wood oven because we are using a fresh wood. So we redirect the energy of smoke as well. So it's like an American slow smoking. So the wood, because it's fresh, that's why it's got this nice wood flavor smoke. We redirect it, and there's a cavity in there that actually holds the temperature for a specific temperature that we like. And then we use that energy to process our snacks, appetizers, mains, desserts, and some of our cocktails passes through that contraption. So we redirect and use that energy as well. But that's just because of our knowledge of using wood fire and the knowledge that's been passed down to us from the galleon trade and the influences that we have because of the culture that we have. So me, I'm just standing on the shoulders of the people that I learned with. So finally, we got here the dish. It's called chicken wing and salad. So this dish is actually originated in the mid part of the Philippines. Thus you can see the word asar, which Carlos can definitely understand, and it's converted to asal because of the lisp. So if you write it down, which most of Filipinos before, local Filipinos is not really literate, so if you write it down it's with an R, but Filipinos, because we can't really write really before, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just education, I guess, is that we hear it as an L because of the lisp of the well, what's the story about this king before that has a lisp? So he actually get people to say Spanish word with a bit of a lisp. So the R changed to a little bit of L, so that's how we hear it. So chicken wing and salad, pickled papaya, and anato. So just anato is actually from Mexico. So it's a different name of it is suete. So it comes from Mexico, and reason being that it reaches Philippines because this is commodity that's dry. So these are trees that actually bear seeds that can stain fat or liquid, and it's very similar to what saffron is, but it's very, very subtle in the taste. So we make aioli with it, which is the yellow looking thing. And then the papaya, we pickled it we married it with a bit of turmeric, which is local ingredients in Southeast Asia. That's why the papaya looks yellow. And then the chicken wing is so these are the ingredients that's listed on this dish, and it's a marriage of the culture, the influence of the galleon trade. So on top is chicken. So poultry is actually endemic in Southeast Asia or the rest of the world. Thus, it's locavore. So it's from Philippines. And And then soy, an influence that is actually Chinese. And well, gallon trade is just not about Spain, Mexico, and Philippines. Reason being that that's the main 3 points those are the ports. But the reason that they're in the Philippines is because of the Chinese commodity and then the Japanese as well. So soy, silk, all this beautiful lacquer is actually from Japanese. So this things that's very high commodity and very much expensive before goes to Philippines because that's the port. But it's actually an influence of Southeast Asia that is prevalent in the value trade and why it's successful. So sugarcane, it's endemic in Southeast Asia, but the Spanish taught us how to change it from syrup to sugar. So sugarcane is actually one of the most biggest vegetable that we have in the middle part of the Philippines. And then papaya, which is from South America, now it's localized in the Philippines, and then in Southeast Asia as well. But that's from South America. So these things that they brought over can survive a few months or a few weeks of travel. That's why this kind of things that you see in Southeast Asia, that's from the galleon trade, are usually dry things that can be shipped and prolonged for a while. Lemongrass, local. Black pepper, Southeast Asia. Onion, which is actually near the middle part of Asia. And then ginger, local. And then coconut vinegar, which is a ferment that Filipinos do. It's a local ingredient. So, locavore, it's a term that is quite weird as well if you look about it, because it's accepting what you have in your present. So, if you say technically locavore, this ingredients on top, that's not from the galleon trade. It's questionable, right? But it's climated in the Philippines. Thus, it becomes part of the culture. Thus, it becomes part of the fabric of society. So it's climatized and localized. And adaptability is the cooking techniques. So in Kubo, we use the energized. So before Filipinos, without knowledge of America, we don't get the energy we spoke, we redirect it and use its energy. But this we understand, and then we apply it in our cooking. And then in contemporary mindset, the thing that we recently, as cultures in the Philippines, is to marinate stuff. And longer marination, which is drying, because of the refrigeration. And that's an apple in there with garlic. That's the red pepper thing. Yeah. On top, it's achara, which is pretty much a side that is good for barbecue. Next slide, please. So, just the significance of the dish is that this dish is a reason why gallon trade is. This is the outcome of gallon trade. So it's a culmination of cultures, chants, and then a contemporary setting. And I really believe that food right now, it's climatized, and it's a real cuisine. And to think about the challenges that I have is that we are usually labeled as fusion restaurant. We are inspired, and usually people are labeling as fusion. But mind you that earlier today, Carlos said that the only reason why we have pasta is that we are influenced. For Italians, the only reason that they have pasta is that they're influenced. So in hindsight, that's fusing two cultures in one. So if you say that Filipino food, or what we're doing is fusion, it's a redundant thing. So every cuisine in the world, on my perspective, is fusion. So if you say Filipino fusion, it's just a redundant thing. But let's talk. That's it.
Looks good.